So, welcome. Welcome from a very wild and wet East Sussex. Um, my name's Naga City. I'm in the Rivendell Shrine Room, and we've been running these Sunday morning sessions for the last few months. It's a way of keeping the retreat centre alive and doing what it's here for, which is to offer the Dharma to people. And we've also been running online retreats from the Shrine Room. But it's a real great pleasure to introduce Vajradevi this morning. Vajradevi and I go way back. We were both mitras around the London Buddhist Centre in the 90s. She was further down the path than me and got ordained quite quickly. But yeah, we go back 25 years, I think, which is it's one of the wonderful things about the Order of the Movement, that you have these kind of crisscrossing connections with people that go back decades. We don't know each other hugely well, but it's just somebody who I've seen certainly develop and grow and change, and she's really taken her practice to some real depths, which she's very generously sharing with us this morning. So I will pass you over to Vajradevi. Just do one little bit of housekeeping. We will be recording this. And yeah, if you can stay muted unless there's questions and things, that would be appreciated. Just makes life easier. So over to you, Vajradevi. Hopefully she's appeared. Has she appeared? Where has Vajradevi disappeared to? Aha! We have a Vajradevi.
Okay. Right.
Over to you.
Thank you. No, I'm just figuring out. I've got a lot of you on screen, and yeah, just getting that gallery view set up. So thank you. Lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me, Naga City. And yeah, talking of those crisscross connections, I think one of the main reasons my connection with Rivendell took off in a different way was because of Kamala Sheila. There was I think Kamala Sheila wasn't able to lead a retreat. I think you were unwell, Kamala Sheila. I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 8 or 9 years. And I was working in the Cambridge Buddhist Centre and got an email. I think a few of us got an email. Could we lead this retreat at really short notice? And I think I was the least qualified. I was definitely the least qualified, and I said that. But I was the most available, and I think I was probably the most keen as well. So the Cambridge Buddhist Centre very kindly let me off my duties for a week, and I came and I led a retreat at Rivendell, and that was the first of many. So yeah, now I lead them every year, and I really love doing them, love coming to Rivendell. So nice to in a way be able to be involved with the Rivendell project in this way. So we're going to have about 2 hours together, a session exploring how we relate to our sense experience and the role that craving and aversion play, but very much using sense experience to explore that sense of holding on to experience and how much that impacts and contributes to our sense of self, a sense of need. Yeah, and looking at, hopefully through the exercises that we do, getting a sense of greater freedom, less clinging, greater freedom. So the format will be something like I'll say some words of introduction and then lead through various exercises for the rest of the morning. So there'll be some sort of exercise, and then I'll probably ask you at least some of the times I'll ask you either to reflect on your experience or to offer something of what you noticed, or any questions if you have them. And then somewhere in the middle we'll take a short break. Bit of break from the screen. So I want to start just with a question and a brief reflection. So it's more of I'll say some things, but you can just take it as a reflection. So the question is, how do we know anything? How do we know anything in our experience, in our world? So you could take a few things, you could take a few examples. So perhaps look at something in your environment and ask the question, how do I know this? And just now I noticed the wind, so we could take a sound. I could hear the wind outside the cabin. How do I know that? And is there any other answer beyond with a sight, say, because I can see this, or the sound, because I'm hearing it? Yeah, or the sensation within the body, perhaps feeling a pulsing or a feeling of clothing on your body, sense of heat or coolness. I know this is real because I can feel those things. I can feel all those contacts, those sense contacts. So that question, how do we know anything? And what we can generally say, we can say as much as that we know things through our senses, whatever we know, because I see it with my own eyes, because I feel it when I touch it. And because others have commonly agreed a reality, so we can see things through their eyes as well. We agree that it's a computer screen. We agree that it's little pictures of people, some of whom we know and others that we don't know. So we can take all these things to be real, then to be true. And because of this sense that I'm the one knowing these things, I'm the one having these experiences. But just for a moment, we could think about another realm of experience and think of how we know things in this realm. So think of, this may work for some of you better than others, but when you dream, or when you've had a dream, and in a dream, things can feel very real. We're seeing colors, we're feeling textures and substances. We hear the sounds of voices. We know that speech is happening within the dream. And there's a whole world within that dream that feels so real. And then we wake up. And it's gone. It was an illusion. And even though in the residue of those moments, it still feels very real. We know it's only a dream. So I think this can give us a clue as to how, well, there's a parallel with our experience, the senses. life feels so real, but we only know it through our sense contacts, our sense experience. But I think the dream scenario can give us a clue as to how we might be misreading an experience or misreading a situation. If a dream feels so real, but we clearly know it not to be, at least in a certain way, when we wake up, what if the same is true for normal waking life? We see it to be real and substantial, but that's simply because we haven't yet woken up. We haven't yet realized bodhi or awakening. So perhaps just hold those thoughts lightly. Don't have to sort of come down onto any conclusion, but just sort of let them rest there. And I want to bring in the perspective of the Heart Sutra, and particularly this line, holding to nothing, whatever. Holding to nothing, whatever. So this is like a right view, a Dharma perspective on experience, holding to nothing, whatever. Experience without craving and aversion in relation to what's being seen, what's being heard, what's being tasted, smelt, touched, or what's being known in the mind, by the mind. So just want to tell you about a moment in my own practice. And so it's a very small moment, really, but this teacher that I sometimes sit with in Burma, he said something like, he was talking about the quality of awareness that we bring to noticing our experience, to watching body and mind. And he said, you have to bring the lightest touch, the lightest possible touch to these objects of experience that are known. Too much energy, and you can't really see them. So you need this lightest possible touch. And I took this into the sit following him saying this, or perhaps he said it in the sit, I don't remember. But what I saw was the degree to which my mind was sort of reaching out and wanting to sort of grasp onto objects of experience, objects of the senses, sense objects, mostly mind objects in this case, things that were thoughts that were arising, different feelings, but also sensations in the body and also sounds. There was this reaching out, and it felt so strong. Well, what I wrote in my diary later, I wrote, I was sort of telling myself, I said, you have to feel and see that addiction to the senses, to the objects of experience. You have to feel and see that addiction, and then you naturally want to rest with awareness. And from awareness, you see that addiction that you take to be normal, proper life. So I think I just had a glimpse of seeing more clearly the force of craving working in the mind. It just going about doing what it usually does, moving towards sense objects, using them for a while and then moving on to the next one. So it was a glimpse of a different perspective from usual, and one where I really felt the force of desire to connect with sense experience. And it feels so normal and so natural to hold on in this way. So the Heart Sutra perspective, holding to nothing, whatever, it sounds really simple, but it's such a radically different way of being. So, and this is what I want to, in a way, just to see if we can sort of get a glimpse of how we're relating to sense experience that's, you know, in many ways is a normal and natural and beautiful part of our lives. So we're not looking to ignore sense experiences or deny the deeply human pleasures of the senses, feeling of sun on our skin or wind in our hair at the moment, beautiful sights, beautiful sounds, and not to deny their value to practice, their value to us opening up and yes, a sense of releasing. So there's many different ways we can explore our senses or use our senses in practice. In a way, they're all that we have. If we include the mind sense, that is all that we have. So we work with them, if you like. We use the senses to go through the senses to see more clearly what's happening, how they're operating. So we're looking to explore how we're relating to experience. So rather than acting from our sense experience, we can observe the mind that is seeing, that is hearing, that is thinking, that is noticing all these things happening in the moment, in experience. So we can get a sense when we investigate, when we explore, if we're relating to our experience from this sort of quite habitual reaching out to objects or pushing them away. So whether craving and aversion are in operation. Or at times we might be able to see that we're relating to experience, we're relating from a place of awareness, of mindfulness. We're just allowing things to be there, arising, persisting for a moment, maybe more, passing away. So we can notice what's happening through having a quality of awareness that's really broad and open and soft and receptive. And all those qualities, they're all sort of quite Padma qualities, aren't they? Broad and open and receptive. And the other one, I can't remember what it was that I said. But there's a precision there too. If we're really aware, there needs to be precision and really landing, if you like, on the present moment or in the present moment. Sometimes I think of in this these qualities in terms of a butterfly landing on a leaf or landing on a flower. So it's very light. The butterfly clearly has a very light touch, and yet there's precision. It knows where it's going. It doesn't sort of land in midair. It lands on this flower head or on this leaf. So holding on to nothing, whatever, we can't really try and do this in the same way that we can't really actively try and let go. But we can, if we have an open quality of mind, an open quality of awareness, we can learn to let be. Partly through seeing where we don't let be, where we do sort of move towards things or pull away from things. If we can just allow that to be noticed, we can let things be in their own way. And then sometimes letting go happens. It happens when the conditions are right for it to do so. Yeah, and sometimes in that moment of letting go happening from letting be, from this open awareness, we see clearly the role of clinging. In that letting go, we see the clinging. And that can be very interesting. I do want to emphasize this is a process in which we can get curious about what's happening. We're not looking so much to have an agenda about, oh, okay, so the end goal is that of letting be and letting go happening. Actually, it's looking at the quality of the mind that supports awareness, and that supports letting be or letting go, and being curious about what those qualities might look like. So I think that's all I'll say for now to start with. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions before we sit? These are all going to be sort of exercises, meditative exercises. But if anyone has any thoughts, then it's probably not so many of us that you can't just unmute and just wave your hand about, and I'll see you. Derek, yeah, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the conditions you were talking about that facilitate letting go. Could you say a bit more about those?
Yeah, well, I think that's what we'll explore mainly through the exercises. Yeah. So, but it's particularly exploring this quality of a receptive, open way of observing, way of looking. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Tom.
Hi. I was wondering that in making that choice to either engage with the senses and kind of lose yourself in them, or to decide to let it be, or to see it, that you need maybe like a really strong motivation to do that. And without that, you're kind of, it's like a bit arbitrary. It's like, oh, I'm going to sit with awareness because, it's like, what's the real kind of like ballast behind that? I know, I kind of know that from experiencing craving and aversion that, there is that kind of a bit grubby or kind of complete, always being unsatisfied. But I wondered if you could say something about that.
Yeah. So really, it's a wisdom practice. So we're looking to see more clearly how we in experience how we construct our world. We can know the theory, we can know as good Buddhists or Dharma practitioners what the theory is, and we can have ideas about things as they really are. But I think it can be much. We need to have our own experiential equivalents, and that's what this type of looking is pointing to. What the quality of the mind, like you say with craving, there can be this feeling of grubbiness, and we can know that really well. We can recognize that in experience in all its facets, craving in all its facets, its complete sort of job description. Sometimes I talk about it, but we can also know the same for awareness or mindfulness, especially mindfulness with the sense of right view or Dharma perspective. What's the experience of that like? What difference does that make to you know, what's being experienced. So there's a lot of subtle investigation that's pointing towards, in a way, freeing the mind from things where we don't even necessarily know that we're being sort of tethered by, if you like.
Mm.
So rather than looking outwards, we're sort of looking to turn, and it sounds a bit weird, but turning to be able to observe the sort of inner workings of that constructing process.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else before we start? Okay. If you'd like to set yourself up comfortably. And if everybody, is everybody muted? I think there's one or two people not muted. You can mute yourselves, or maybe take Naga City, you can see who's not muted and mute them. I'm going to turn my computer towards my shrine. But feel free to just turn away from the screen if you'd like to, especially if you meditate with your eyes open. So you might start with just another very brief exercise, and that's just having perhaps the tips of your fingers touching. And you can make and re-break that contact if you like. And you can do it more with you can have your palms slightly touching as well, and make and re-break that contact. So I'm going to ask another question. So how much energy or effort is required to be able to notice those sensations of the fingers touching, the palms touching? So I don't necessarily mean ongoingly. I just mean in the moment when you notice that contact, those sensations. Does that noticing take a lot of effort? And then relax your hands. And for most people, they find that there's almost no effort. You need to be present, but in those moments when you're present, then noticing awareness happens. So bear that in mind, because that's a pointer to the quality of energy or effort that's needed So bringing that light touch bringing it to the process of settling. Let settling happen without any particular agenda. Settling into the space around you, perhaps there's sounds. Letting the energy settle into the body. Notice the quality of sensation, different parts of the body, areas of relaxation, areas of presence. Notice any areas of holding. Might be holding in the legs or the breath. And just notice them with broad, spacious awareness. And notice any moments of release, letting be, and just feeling those out. In the legs and the belly, the chest, and the hands. Every now and again, just checking back on the quality of energy that you're using. This can be quite physical, just a settling back. This much effort, this much energy. And see if it's necessary or possible to reduce any unnecessary effort. Just using as much as is needed to be present. inhabiting our sense experience. Embodying and as much as possible staying with the direct experience of sensation. Experience of temperature, tingling, pulsing. Letting the awareness move around quite naturally. The attention will pick up certain bits of experience and then move on. And your job is just to notice that happening. We can notice the touch, sense, feeling, warmth, hardness, moistness, rough and smooth. So we have the sense objects, and then we have the knowing, the awareness of the different sense objects. If we're present, we can sometimes recognize the quality of that knowing, that awareness. Sense objects through the touch, sense, tactile sensations. And the knowing of them, the awareness of them. Just relaxing any sense of effort to attending to anything in particular. It's really letting the mind relax, just be as it is, mind and body. And see what comes, if anything comes. Perhaps looking back on the practice, anything that you noticed, any moments, perhaps particularly when you're present, that stand out. We're not going to do anything with that right now. But in a couple of minutes, we'll move on to another exercise. So in this couple of minutes, if you like, just to facilitate the mind and body, it's really relaxing. You might open your eyes if they're not already open. Have a look around. Keeping in touch with the body and with the senses of seeing and hearing. And you can have your eyes open or closed in this particular exercise coming up. But if you have them open, let the eyes be soft. And not moving around too much. And let the attention stay settled within your physical body. Some degree of ease, a relaxation in the posture. And noticing in particular sounds around. The hearing sense. Might be sounds outside your room or inside your house or apartment. Sounds inside the body. And notice any preferences as to sounds. Some sounds we're happy to have there, and others we can find ourselves disliking them, wishing they'd go away. Sound of the neighbour's power tool or the local road. Sound of the birds or the wind. We're not trying to change any responses, but just noticing any sense of liking or disliking. And particularly noticing liking, because that can feel quite normal and natural, and therefore go unnoticed. What does liking feel like in the body or in the mind? And you might notice this in relation to different sensations in the body as well. Some are welcomed, and some are rejected, or at best they're tolerated. And sometimes with things that we don't like, there's the added, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be like this. Another aspect of this investigation into hearing, into sound, is can you feel the difference between listening and hearing. When we listen, we're usually focused on one particular aspect of experience. And hearing has more breadth. What do you notice about the difference, if you can identify them in experience? Hearing, listening. Is there a difference in the degree of focus or in the amount of energy? Or in the degree of tension or relaxation? Sometimes there can be a sense of anticipation, or waiting for a sound to happen again. What's the quality of the mind that's anticipating, waiting for? Whenever you feel that you've got a bit lost, if you've already noticed that, then you're back in the present. So what do you notice in this moment? And this one. You don't need to tell yourself in words what you're noticing. You just let that knowing faculty take it in. awareness of sounds, awareness of body sensation. Whatever it is. Notice if you find yourself reaching out to a sound, a mental reaching. And you might pick up a subtle sense of strain in that reaching. And see if it's possible to just settle back. Relax the posture. Give a bit more weight to what you're sitting on. And tune into sounds from this settled back position, physically and mentally. Relax into awareness. Relax into presence. Knowing the realm of sound. And within that, the realm of silence. Relax into knowing sound as sound. You'll probably find perception automatically labels the sound. Birds, cars, wind, heating system. But if you like, we're dialing back on the label and allowing the direct experience to come more to the forefront. So we'll have a break in a few minutes, but before we do that, it would be nice to hear from a few of you. So anything that you noticed that caught your interest? So no rights and wrongs, but what were you aware of happening? It can be quite helpful just to sort of speak that experience. Moksha.
I really liked that expression of dialing down the labels. That seemed to articulate what seemed to be happening as the process started to become more subtle, and noticing that there were some experiences I wouldn't be able to label anyway. They just seemed to escape language, or so I think that was where I was starting to get interested.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yes, yeah, really important. I think that I think it's one of the values of, in a way, letting the mind being really hands off, if you like, with the experience. We start to sort of get out of the habitual ways that experience is known, and it allows for things that we can't necessarily articulate to be recognized in some way, which I think is really, really helpful. Yeah, thank you. You are now.
Can I say something?
Oh, let's have Lynn, and then let's see. Yeah.
In the hearing exercise, I had a headache, so my attention kept getting pulled back to the headache, and I was trying to sort of look at whether there was a pushing, you know, that was because I was wanted to push the headache away or not. So when I could go with that, that was sort of quite interesting, actually. But I found it, but I found it quite hard to move away from the headache to the, you know, it's like, well, I want to direct my attention to hearing, but I found it very hard to do. So I got a little bit lost, really.
Yeah, I think when there's I sympathize. I'm a chronic migrainer, so I work a lot with head pain, and so when there's a if you like a strong pull on the object, then it's fine to stay with that, and perhaps notice that pull, which it sounds like you did. So we're not resisting it, but oh right, that's quite a strong pull toward and just staying with that. And if the awareness can be quite soft and broad, then you won't just be noticing the pain. That might be quite a dominant thing, but there will be sounds around that, or there'll be other body sensations around that. Sounds like you
I did get to those as well, and that sort of took me on quite a journey. It was sort of quite interesting, you know, around different parts of my body as well. But okay, thanks.
Yeah, but it's a good point to not it's a very receptive way of doing practice. So even though I'm guiding you to explore particular areas, if that's not where your experience is going, and particularly if there's some quite a strong object, whether it's a sound or a body sensation or whatever, then or something else, mental thing. You don't want to set up a sort of conflict or a sort of resistance in the mind. So thanks for bringing up that. I'm not sure, was there somebody else? Was there?
Yeah, it was me. Hi there. Yeah, I was just.
Sorry, can you say your name? Because I can't.
Jen.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, I get this interesting shift whenever I am asked to listen and hear. So when I listen, it feels very much that my energies are pulled out, and I feel very much a self. And then as soon as I'm asked to hear, sound comes in, but I kind of disappear. And the labeling aspect that kind of disappears as well. And it's quite a disorienting. It's not scary, but it's disorientating because I no longer know what anything is or means or anything like that. So it's a really strange shift. It's not scary. It's quite pleasant. But I just find it quite interesting going from that listening to hearing mode, because they're very different.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, great. I mean, they're I think what you've articulated is quite a strong distinction. I think other people will probably find the distinction varies in subtlety or distinctiveness. But yeah, what you've articulated is generally there. It's that stronger emphasis on the naming, which is the conceptual self, if you like. It's always going to have a stronger sense of self in it, and the more receptive, that more allowing things to. We're receiving experience, I suppose, that we're just receiving sounds as they come, rather than sort of going out and saying, this is what you are, I know what you are. And probably it doesn't feel like that with listening, but in a way there's probably a bit more of the views behind it, very subtle views behind, I know what you are. Whereas the more receptive we can be, then the more hearing happens. It's something that happens so it feels like there's less sort of self-governance around it. And I think that's a helpful distinction to have. And you said it was a bit disorienting, but I think as long as you feel that you've always got that, if that feels a bit too much, then you've always got sort of recourse to change the mode slightly.
Thank you.
But make sure you're really grounded. I think maybe that's just the other thing, just to say, just that really sort of in your physical experience. See if that makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, let's have a little break. I make it 15:15, so let's have 10 minutes just to get a drink or pee, whatever you want to do, and then we'll start again at 11:25. Good. So we'll start in just another minute or so. Okay, so we'll get going. 10 minutes is not very long, I know, but yeah, you can keep tasting. You can keep feeling those sensations of your tea if you're not quite done yet. So we're going to do another couple of exercises. They'll be a bit shorter than the ones we've done, just partly because time is going on. But I wanted to just read before this, just read a little quote from Bhante, which I quite like. And so it's about receptivity. He says, receptivity is the first requisite of the disciple and of anyone who wants to learn anything. We can be anything else we like. We can be wicked. We can be stupid. We can be full of faults. We can backslide. In a sense, it doesn't matter. But we must be spiritually receptive. We have to be willing and ready to learn. When we know that we do not know, everything is possible. So I wanted to read that partly, it's that territory that that we were talking about just before the break. When we know that we do not know, everything is possible. So just having that sense of that there's so much more. In a way, what we know is probably tiny. But if we think we know, we can't be open, or we're not open to all that is not yet known, all that we don't know. It's like that image of the iceberg, isn't it? There's a tiny portion of the iceberg above the water and the rest below. We just don't know. But if we're receptive, then new possibilities are there. So sit quite comfortably, again, not necessarily in meditation posture. But perhaps away from the screen. We'll just have about 10 minutes. And this time, definitely keep your eyes open. And yeah, you might be sitting really naturally. Sit with your, your legs crossed. No, not in meditation way, the other way. Yeah, with your tea. Maybe looking out if you have a view, if you have the sky or the garden, or maybe just the room that you're in. So as I mentioned before, just let the eyes be quite soft. They can even be a little bit blurred. The vision can be a little bit blurred. Just really let the gaze soften. And in this way, you might notice more than you usually do in your peripheral vision. That's what happens when we relax the eyes and soften the gaze. So we're almost seeing out of the corner of the mind's eye. Very mysterious. And you might be aware of particular sense objects, different things, sky, trees, floor, objects on your shrine. And if you like, they're the end of the process. The sense objects, the end of the process. And if you like, we're relaxing back or settling back to see other parts of the process. How the mind is relating to those things being seen. The quality of energy or effort that's being used in seeing or looking, making that distinction. you could explore, try looking at something and see how long you can sustain that looking at the same object. And go from that to breadth of seeing. You might notice again, as with hearing and listening, that sense of reaching out or settle back with looking and seeing. Exploring any differences you notice. Looking can take a lot of energy. And can introduce some tension into the body-mind. So is it possible to look from this settled back, receptive awareness? And with seeing, it can be like we're seeing through the whole body. And aware that seeing is happening. And other sense experiences will come in, and that's fine. Notice where the attention has gone. Hearing, tending to sensation, noticing thinking. And at some point, noticing again that seeing is happening. appreciating that seeing is happening. Appreciating the mind that's aware. The body that supports physical, mental, emotional experience. Just a few minutes for anyone to offer what they noticed, what caught your attention or your interest in the practice, in your own experience. Suchimani.
I started by looking at the chair opposite me, so it was quite active. And then I just sat back and allowed myself to just see it. And what I noticed was that allowed me to be very aware of my emotions at the same time. So that there was quite a lot of fondness arose, because it's quite a worn chair, there's worn patches on it. So it allowed all that to emerge and a certain softness for the chair. So I was just quite interested that somehow sitting back and being a bit more receptive allowed me just to feel a whole range of emotions.
Yeah,
I enjoyed.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so maybe that's sort of pointing to what I was saying, is that often I think we are sort of at the end of the process. We put a lot of emphasis on what's being seen, and therefore we miss all that relationship to the object, relationship to what's being seen, and how the mind is, or how the emotions are at that time. Yeah, great observation. Serena, I think, yes, you.
Yes. What I noticed was for me, a huge difference between the seeing and the hearing. With the seeing, nothing is happening. Everything was staying exactly the same. So it was a very passive process. So even though I know that visual perception is very constructed, I couldn't see it happening. I just knew it was happening. Whereas with the sound, I had the most wonderful feeling, or well, not even a feeling, a sort of realization that my mind works as if it's constantly doing a jigsaw puzzle. So it's constantly with the sounds, it's dynamic, so they're discrete events. And so you look at them, okay, where does this fit? And that's what it's doing all the time. It's saying, it's got, what are the connections between these sounds? Where do they go? What's the bigger picture? And I haven't really noticed that jigsaw puzzle element of my mind before, but actually it's very strong, and I love it. It's a sort of curious, and this connection thing is important, and trying to make sense of things, even though I know that understanding is really irrelevant. I mean, it's neither here nor there whether I understand it, anything. I clearly want to understand. I clearly have a strong wish to understand, to make sense of things, to put things together. I just was quite intrigued by that.
Yeah, great. The more you can it's great noticing that jigsaw, that mind that's wanting to put things together. And the more you can sort of be hands off with that, you can see it doing its own thing. And there may be other sorts of connections being made that are less to do with perception and are more to do with the wisdom mind. Awareness and wisdom sort of working together on some level to have a different sort of understanding. That's what we're doing. We're creating the conditions, and as you say, it's not through. So noticing what the mind is already doing is a big part of that. Noticing that desire to construct.
And I agree that actually things arise, then they do come of their own.
That's it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Oh, Manidara, great. And then we'll do the last exercise. Yes.
Unmute. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. My experience was that my awareness seemed to change, be in a different place in my body between seeing and looking. And I've experienced this before with the more active, which I sort of think of as looking and listening. My awareness seems to be much more forward in the body. And with the more receptive ones, it feels as if it's much further back. And sometimes I play around with moving it from one to the other. And I've absolutely no idea what that means, but I've noticed it, not in all sorts of areas of life, actually, that if I feel I'm being a bit too over-concentrated, just as it were, almost feeling I'm moving to the back of my brain or something, or moving to the front of my brain. Anyway, that was what.
Great, lovely. I mean, I think that is partly the emphasis on settling back is we so often don't really inhabit the back of the body. There's a lot of attention sort of poised at the front in that way of sort of leaping out towards different sense objects. So it is a bit of a different relationship, settling back. We're still using concepts to some degree. Wherever there's location involved, there's the concepts are involved, but we're encouraging a way of seeing. If we're more settled in the back, then the seeing is often broader. We can often be broader and more relaxed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jen, if yours is very quick, we could do yours, and then we need to move on.
It probably won't be quick, so let's just move on. But
okay. All right. Well, put it in the chat if you can. But yeah. So go back to gallery view. So I just wanted to throw in a quote at this point just before the last little exercise, and it's to do with the way that we create our world, partly through this attending to the end of the process. We don't really see all the constructing that's going on at earlier stages of the process. So this is a quote from Byron Katie, who's not a Buddhist, but I think she's a very interesting woman. She says, "We don't attach to people or to things. So our clinging is less in relation to people or to things, but to uninvestigated concepts that we believe to be true in the moment." So we don't attach to people or to things, but to uninvestigated concepts that we believe to be true in the moment. So I think this gives us a sense of, again, if we're at the object end of the process, we miss seeing the views, the ideas, the concepts and opinions that are, if you like, happening or more embedded earlier in that process of perceiving things. And so they influence how we relate, how we respond to experience through the senses. And what we're doing in this practice is, as I say, we're investigating a little bit earlier in the process by having a breadth of awareness. So as Suchimani was pointing out, it doesn't involve choosing one or the other, but by settling back, we're still aware of the object, but we're aware of other things as well. We're aware of more happenings around the whole experience in the moment. So let's just have another, well, it'll be 10 minutes at the most, and then I'll hand over to Nagasiddhi a few minutes before the end. So just another very short sit. You can sit as you like. Maybe I'll finish with a few lines of my favorite poems. So again, just let the mind body be relaxed and natural. Maybe a couple of breaths. And just for a few minutes, let yourself be aware of each of the senses or any of the senses as they come to your attention. We're sort of revolving through the senses all the time. Seeing, hearing, touching, less to do with smelling and tasting, though that you may have, if you're in your shrine room, you may have some incense smells or tea tastes or smells. But no, just noticing all the senses as processes. Processes that pick up and put down objects. And the mind too, the many mind objects that we pick up and put down. Thought, image, a moment of perceiving, of knowing, of awareness, labeling. But particularly the feel of this broad thing we call mind. It's really just it's a collection of faculties and capacities. And awareness is one of them. That capacity to know, to be aware of whatever else is happening. So very gently settling back, noticing what's happening in the mind, or what's happening through the senses, including the mind sense. And at times we'll probably find ourselves more at the end of the process with the thought, the image, the sight, a sensation. The emotion. And others we might find we're aware of knowing. Recognize the mind that's aware, or that's seeing, feeling. Touching. And noticing this from a relaxed, settled back and open perspective. Directing as little as possible. Letting go of any unnecessary effort. We might feel a certain pull towards sense objects. That's very natural. We can just notice what that feels like. Notice from that settled back place. Quality of clinging or craving in the mind. And again, if you notice any sense of strain, tension in observing what's happening in the realm of the mind, settling back, observing, noticing from this embodied perspective. Soft but precise. I'll just end with these few lines from the poet Adrienne Rich. If the mind were clear, and if the mind were simple, you could take this mind, this particular state, and say, this is how I would live if I could choose. This is what is possible. So I'll hand back to Naga City. Thank you all for coming. And if you're interested in hearing a bit more, I do have a blog site, and Naga City and I we're banking on one of us remembering. We tell you about the blog site. So I'll put it in the chat just in case you want to have a look at that. I'll hand you over to Naga City.
Thank you, Vajradevi. Yes, I was just about to remind you.
Thank you.
So, no, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. I can certainly feel a difference in my own being from before we started, and that's always a good sign. So just to say, we've got these ongoing Rivendell practice sessions, more or less every Sunday. The details are on the website. We've got some great people coming up. We've got Vajradevi, Tejananda, Superdasi is doing something. So yeah, do come along. And also Rivendell's running a series of online events. So in 2 weeks' time, Mandara and myself are doing a week on looking at an imaginative look at the life of the Buddha. So if you find yourself at a loose end in a lockdown and you want to have a week of Dharma input and an imaginative way of looking at the life of the Buddha, do come and join us. We've also got Tejananda at the end of the month doing a week-long meditation retreat online, and Paramanda in December. So do come along to any of our online events and do tell your friends. Please tell your friends about us. And also, as you can imagine, it's a very difficult time for Rivendell right now. We've been closed since the middle of March, and we're hoping to open in the new year. But who knows? It's a very, very uncertain time, and it's not a good time to be running a retreat centre. Well, in some ways, it's a very good time to be running a retreat centre. Financially, it's not. So if you are in a position to make a donation, you can do so through the website. Any donations, large or small, greatly appreciated. Yeah, because we do need them to keep going. And yeah, who knows when this will end. And when we do reopen next year, we will have to do so under very small numbers. So great for you if you get a retreat. You'll have a lovely intimate retreat. Not so good for our bank balance, I'm afraid. So yeah, any donations much appreciated. So thank you again to Vajradevi. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Away from your Shropshire cabin. Magic of the internet.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming along. It's great to create this little virtual Sangha for a couple of hours. I personally find it a great support, and it's lovely to see you all. So go well and look after yourselves. Take care. Good care.
Thank you.